Hey everybody, this is Nick Baldwin, and today I'm being joined by women's MMA pioneer Sarah Kaufman, who picked up a first-round TKO victory over Jessy Miele at BTC 13 in St. Catharines, Ontario this past weekend. It was her first fight since October 2019. Back in win column, Sarah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. I just finished a workout and happy to talk to you, and it's been a really good weekend.
Less than 48 hours and back in the gym, back home, I guess?
Yeah, I'm kind of always like that, and especially if you don't take any damage in the fight, it's always time to just get back in there and get better and keep improving. And I mean, have fun this week. Not stress yourself out, but enjoy it.
Yeah. As I said off the top, it had been over 2 years since your last fight. And I know that time you didn't want to necessarily be on the sidelines for. So how good did it feel to make that walk again and not even just get the win, but just be able to actually have a fight?
It was probably the most fun that I've had in any fight of my career. And I think that was a big thing for me that I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that I enjoyed every moment of it. I had a blast. This is what I love to do, and not make it a chore and make it stressful, but just do what I know how to do and get the big win and move forward.
Most fun, do you think that's because it had been so long, or was there something about the specific fight or the finish? Like what made it more fun than any of the other fights or wins you had in your lengthy career?
Likely it came down to my mentality. I really, even just walking around in St. Catharines there, walking back before the fight, we went for lunch and I just walked back to the hotel and I was just smiling and just consciously making a decision to, smile, enjoy it, try and not be stressed out. There's always pressures that you put on yourself, that you feel the public puts on you, that the promotion puts on you if they want you to win or they brought you in or whatever that looks like. Um, it really just came down to making a mental choice to smile, enjoy it, have a good time, and make it what the sport should be, which is a passion and something that you look forward to, not something that you dread when it comes to the fight.
So then you get this win, first round finish over Jessy Miele, as I said, a notable sort of women's veteran herself. She's been in Bellator before and among other bigger promotions. What was the emotion after the win? I mean, I was going to ask, like, were you relieved? But in some ways, it must have just been like, hey, this is what I've been waiting to do. Like, I've been wanting to do this for 2 years. Now I finally got that chance. Like, what were the feelings like after you get that finish?
You exactly touched on it. It wasn't relief. It was literally just pure enjoyment. It was knowing that this is where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do. It was a kind of a reaffirmation as to me knowing that this is the right path for me and something um, that I should be doing and that I'm kind of meant to do. And that I've worked really hard for many, many years to get there. And so being able to go in there and not just get a win, but get a win and really touch on the things that I've been working on and that I've wanted to show in a fight. I wanted to land some elbows. I envisioned myself finishing this with ground and pound. I wanted to use my wrestling, and I wanted to just let loose and throw hard punches. So the fact that I was able to land some good kicks, land some elbows, get a knockdown, and then transition on the ground, going from one thing into another and finishing with that hard ground and pound. It's just everything culminated into a perfect performance for what I wanted at this moment, and I couldn't be more happy with how things went.
So why had you been out since October 2019?
I mean, pandemic, of course, played a factor in being on the sidelines because there were a lot of promotions that were unable to run fight cards during 2020 and even some of 21. This was, I think, the first card back in Ontario, or one of the first in an arena with fans at least. And so things are starting to come back, but it's been a rough go. And in 2019, I fought in the PFL, which was at 155 pounds, and I'm a 135er. So I was definitely looking to get back into my bantamweight division. And it's just been really impossible to get anyone to fight me. No one will say yes. And to the fact that Jessy, even though it was at 145, took this fight, and we were able to make this happen about 4 weeks before the fight actually went. I was relieved because it's been a struggle. It's definitely had me questioning my kind of long-term and longevity in this sport. If I can't get fights, then why am I grinding? Why am I working so hard and putting that pressure mentally on myself to try and stay ready and to be mentally and physically ready at any moment's notice for a fight if I know that it's never coming. So this was just a huge relief that this was able to move forward, and BTC was able to make this fight happen and find an opponent that was willing to step up. And hopefully this opens the door for more opportunities in the very near future, because I'm not looking to sit out for another 2 years. That's unacceptable.
Why do you think no one wanted to fight you? And the obvious answer, I think you're going to sort of say is, well, I'm a very good fighter and I'll beat anyone who I'm fighting. But the way I look at it, like a different way to look at it is, you're a big name, and if a fighter is confident, maybe it's a risky fight, but they get that win, quote unquote, build their name off yours. Like, that's an opportunity I think people would want, but clearly not.
That's an opportunity that people should want and that they look for. But I think a lot of people look for an opportunity to fight a big name that they know they can beat. And I think when you see my name, you know I'm a big name, but you know you can't beat me, or you know that it's going to be very hard to beat me, and only, the best in the world are able to do that. So I don't think that I'm an easy fight for anyone on this planet. And I think those fighters who are looking to potentially bounce into bigger organizations are looking for safe fights that can build their career, that they can build their name off of, but not ones that are super risky. And I'm always going to be in that risky category. So while I hope that people want to build their name off of me, I know that they struggle to have that self-confidence to know that they can do that, because I'm going to come in there and I'm going to beat them up, and I want to take that win.
So I guess for fighter XY, is that the idea that, you're a big name or a tough fight, I mean, trumps the idea that you're a big name, that's a good opportunity.
Exactly. I'm a big name. They want that win. They want that win over me, but they know that it's not going to be easy. And so they take an easier path, or their management or coaching staff decides that. I respect that, but also I don't respect that, because I want everyone to fight me and I want everyone to call me out, because I want all of those fights. But realistically, I'm, top 5 at least in the world at this point right now, in this very moment. That's what I truly believe. I know that I can be number 1. And so that's a very risky fight to take and not have a lot of eyes on you. This is, some of those big names, if they're not in the UFC or if they're not already signed to a big promotion, they want to fight me for a lot of money, and I should be getting paid a lot. They should be getting paid a lot. And so I understand that, there just aren't too many promotions aside from the major players who are able to put on an extremely high caliber fight, and pay us what we deserve.
Would it be fair to say fighting in PFL was actually quite relieving, just because you didn't have to worry about whether someone wanted to fight you or agreed to fight you? Like, they're in the tournament, it has to happen. Was it nice?
PFL was fantastic. My only concern, an issue with PFL, was that it was at 155, sure, and I'm a 135er and not even tall for 135. So aside from that, I loved everything about the PFL format for me. It forced people to fight me. I was guaranteed to have fights on certain dates. And depending on how you performed, and solely based on how you performed, that was what dictated what opportunities you got and what bigger fights you got, whether it's semifinals or finals or how that looks. So I love everything about the PFL. If they did a 135 division, that would be amazing. I would happily and willingly, and being, the first person in line to sign up for that. But until that happens at 135, unfortunately, I'm not interested in 155.
Yeah. I don't want to look too much toward the past, because you're back now. Let's sort of talk about the future. But I do want to ask you one thing. How frustrating were these past 2 years? Because you're a fighter who you're still sort of in your physical prime. These are years that you could have been competing, picking up big wins, working your way back to the UFC potentially. And instead, I mean, and COVID, as you said, did play a part in that too. That's out of everybody's control. But just sitting around for 2 years and training and not fighting, how tough was that?
It's so frustrating seeing other people get opportunities and seeing the fight game continue on, and you're pushing, doing everything you can on your end to make sure that happens. And it's just not happening for you. It's very frustrating. And, Lance Spod, he's with Iridium Management. he's been great. He's been working so hard to try and get me fights, and it's been frustrating for him as well. I know that he would have wanted to give me, 3, 4, 5 fights in this time, and it's been a big struggle, but we're at where we're now, and I think I've taken that time to try and really reflect on why I do the sport and what I want from the sport, and control the things that I can control, which is my mental state, my physical state. I've started working with a strength coach, Steve McKinnon, who kind of worked with my previous strength coach, Ty Goodale, and I feel like I'm, stronger than ever. I feel like I'm lean. My technique is great. My wrestling's gotten better. My striking's gotten better. My overall MMA, those are the things I can control. So that's what I've been working on. And I've also been starting to consider what life is like post-fighting. If, being 36, I'm not going to be fighting for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So now we're starting to think of those things too, and what that looks like, post-career. But at this point, I'm still really happy to be fighting. And especially after this weekend, it just gives me that much more confidence and self-awareness of knowing what I'm capable of and how I'm still capable of improving 15 years into this pro game. And I'm looking forward to what's next.
Quickly on that note, how important is it for MMA fighters to consider post, MMA fighting and post retirement and their lives? Because this is a sport where it doesn't always set you up, financially for the future. And it's a sport that you can't do when you're 45 years old, when you're 50 years old, at least at a high level anyways. And it's also a sport where you kind of are all in during your career. You don't have time to like focus on other things or do other things. So how important is it as you get towards the end to really think about that and get something, figure it out, I guess you could say?
It's always important to have some kind of plan and some kind of, savings or financial, awareness of what's going on. And fortunately, I've been my entire career, I've been working, and I'd say primarily I've been working as a coach and, coaching martial arts and doing personal training and running the gym, running Zuma martial arts. And so it's been really fortunate that I've had that, because fighting isn't everything, and one injury could end your career, and then that's the end of it. And if you don't have some kind of plan or structure or idea for where you're going next, I think people can get really stuck there. And I've always been a saver. I've always been a planner. And so for me, it's just the next step. And I think that all athletes and really all people should have a bit of an idea of, if what you're doing currently doesn't work out, or if something changes and life changes, would you be okay? What would you do next? Do you have education? Do you have experience? Do you have, RSPs? Do you have investments? Like what does that look like for you? And how will you be set for the future, and not just looking, 5 days or 5 months or 5 years ahead, but even further than that.
Now, virtually all of your fights in the past 10 years, really, and post UFC included, have been on sort of the biggest stages, like in the biggest promotions. UFC, of course, Strikeforce, Invicta, PFL, most recently. Now you went back to a bit of a more low-key regional promotion. What was that like? Kind of maybe a reminder of some of your earlier fights, like if we go back several years.
It felt the same and it felt different all at the same time. I think once you're walking to the cage and there's a crowd and you're going into the actual fight, it's all the same. It doesn't matter if it's 5 million people watching or 5 people watching. For yourself, at least for me, I have the same goals every time I step in there, and that's to do my best and to put on the performance that I'm going to be proud of, regardless of what other people think. But definitely, if you're used to doing some of the promotion side of things, where you have extra videos and photo shoots and interviews before the fight during fight week, the fight week's just a little bit busier. Whereas going up St. Catharines, I flew out on Thursday. I didn't have to cut any weight because it was at 145. I cut like 1 or 2 pounds. So really just managed my dinner prior to the weigh-ins on Friday, and then the fight on Saturday. So I really had a lot of kind of free time to not have priorities, which with the bigger promotions, you generally have more obligations that come into play. But it was great. I was out there with Adam Zujic and Russ McCumber, who were my corners, and I got to meet some really great people and spend time and go out for dinner. We went to Niagara Falls and enjoyed kind of the views and walked around. So it was just nice to be able to relax. And as I say, I felt no stress this whole week. I really just had a great time and tried to enjoy the experience.
I was going to ask about that, and I knew you got there Thursday night or something, and we're out Sunday, so it was a short trip to Ontario. Does having a less hectic fight week and not having to run around and cutting weight, especially, does that impact your performance? Like, do you think had you have had to do photo shoots and do a ton of interviews and this and that, like, can that get a bit much?
I like it. It's all part of the sport, and I think it brings kind of the gravity of the experience and the pressure of what's to come and how much is on the line with every fight. And it also kind of makes me feel fight ready if I know that I have things that are different than my regular everyday kind of schedule. But I don't know, I guess I just have so much experience at this point that I just enjoyed it. And it didn't really matter whether it was a lot of obligations or just a few. Yeah, it just felt great, and it was a great experience, and didn't need to have anything more or anything less to top off the weekend.
Yeah. You said in your post-fight interview that you want Amanda Nunes. Of course, for that to happen, you have to re-sign with the UFC. Do you feel like this was enough? Like, have you earned that opportunity?
I earned the opportunity a long time ago. I don't think it's a matter of earning it at this point. I do know that the UFC in particular, they want you coming off of a win. And so that's kind of been over the last 2 years. I haven't been able to get a win because I haven't been able to get a fight. So that's been really frustrating, knowing that my skill set is where it needs to be fighting the best in the world and not getting the opportunity based on a technicality of losing a fight 2 weight classes up. But this definitely is one kind of check mark off that list of reasons why I wouldn't get an opportunity. But it's not up to me. All I can do, as I say, is be myself and move forward and let Iridium and Lance do the work there. And I know that I'm the best in the world, and so I'm in the sport to prove that I'm the best. And if I don't think that that's the case, then I don't think I should be fighting, and I don't think anyone should be fighting. I guess that's a personal choice and a personal thought, but I think the sport is far too dangerous, and the risk is so high for injury, for your brain, for your body, for your mental state. I think if you don't think you're going to be the best and you don't have a path to being the best, then you shouldn't just be in the sport for the money. I mean, I guess that's different if you're getting $1 million a fight, and maybe you just take one more fight because it's $1 million. But depending on, I guess, what you're getting paid, there's other ways to make money. So I think you just need to be the best, and I know that I'm there. So that's why I want Amanda, because currently she's number one, and if it's someone else, then I'll take that other person. But I fully understand that there'll be a couple fights before then. But I'm not going to shy away from anyone.
I assume, considering we're less than 48 hours removed from this fight, I would imagine there hasn't really been much talk about UFC or just next steps with your management yet?
No, not yet. Just pretty much traveled home, and now it's Monday, so it's been a pretty short amount of time. But I'm definitely happy with how things went, and I'm sure that they are as well. We've had a couple messages here and there, but overall, we'll just chat, I'm sure, sometime this week, kind of make a plan and move forward and kind of keep checking off these boxes until I can prove to everyone that I'm number one in the world and I deserve that opportunity.
Yeah. And of course, whether we're talking about a title shot or signing with the UFC or anything else, whether a fighter should get something and will are two very different things. As of right now on Monday afternoon, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that your next fight will be in the UFC?
Oof. I couldn't tell you, honestly. It's not a straight line kind of diagram that goes in this fight game. So at this point, I'm not going to put. I don't. I'd like to say it could be a 0. So at this point, we'll keep moving forward. And based on my performance, it should be a 10. But it should have been a 10, 5 years ago as well. So I know where my skill set lies, and so do they. And when the time's right, they'll bring me in.
If the UFC, for one reason or another, like crazy things do happen in this sport, if that isn't an opportunity for you, what then? Or would you be interested in Bellator? As you said, PFL, if they bring in a women's bantamweight weight class, like what would be the ideal scenario for you if the UFC wasn't a possibility?
Ideal scenario for me is fighting the best that I can at 135. That's where I'm interested in fighting. I'm not interested in signing with Bellator at 145. My best is at 135, and that's where I want to be. So whichever organization or fights that we can make at 135, that's where I see this going.
Okay. Is that sort of a change in mindset you've had in the past few years? Because I know when we spoke in Calgary back in 2018, like you said, you were willing to fight Cris Cyborg, and of course that wouldn't have been at 135. So is this something a bit new where you've realized I'm my best at 135? That's going to be the focus?
No, it's the same. I've always felt 135 is where I'm best. But am I open to fighting Cris at some point? Sure. But am I looking to fight in the division to build myself up to fight Cris? No. So my answer is not different. It's still the same. 135 is where I want to be. And if at some point they wanted to make a super fight, I would do a super fight. But I'm not interested in, at least at this point or probably any point in the future, really fighting outside of my weight class unless there's a special circumstance.
All right. Well, Sarah, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. And congratulations on the big win over the weekend.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nick. Appreciate it.
All right.